Hi everyone, and welcome to this video where we look at another member of my classic computer collection. And today we're going to have a look at the Spectravideo SV-318. So just to set the scene, the year was 1983, and in that year the home computer wars were in full swing. So every month or so you had a clutch of new home computers being released, ready to wow kids and their parents and drag them into the computer age. Now, Spectravideo at this time was involved in the home computer market, but it was basically a maker of game cartridges and joysticks. But in 1983, it released a couple of models, the Spectravideo 318 and the Spectravideo 328. The 328 was the big brother, with a full-stroke keyboard and plenty of RAM, and the 318 was the younger brother, chiclet keyboard and less RAM, only 16K. So although the 318 certainly didn't win the computer wars, the home computer wars, it did have some interesting features, and they were interesting enough to motivate me to get one of these units for my collection. So let's have a look at it.
Here's the machine splashed on the cover of New Zealand Bits and Bytes. Here in New Zealand, it retailed at around about $900, below the extremely popular Commodore 64, which was going for around $1,000. Now, the New Zealand dollar was buying about 50 cents US, if you want to make an international comparison. The review in the magazine was very enthusiastic about the machine, with the subtitle being, "One Nifty Feature After Another." Here's a flyer for the computer, which uses a quote from a review by Creative Computing. It says, "More bang for your buck." There's also a comparison chart showing just what you got compared to others on the market at the time. It's skewed in favour of the SV-318's features, of course. All the advertisers did that. But that notwithstanding, the machine did stack up well for the price. What you got was a fast, expandable, Z80-based machine with handy graphics and sound, and a very good version of BASIC. Now, on the negative side, you had the chiclet keyboard, which puts this machine squarely into the games or educational camp. But that's okay, as Spectravideo always regarded the higher-end SV-328 as the more serious home computer. I'm not sure what marketing was like in other countries, but here in New Zealand it was poor. I looked through the 6 subsequent issues of our national computer magazine, New Zealand Bits and Bytes, after the review that appeared in it, and I couldn't find any ads at all. Now, in contrast, advertisements for the Commodore 64 and the Sinclair Spectrum were there in abundance. Roger Moore, who played James Bond in the early 1980s, was enlisted as a frontman for some of the marketing effort. Sadly, in this case 007 didn't make much of a difference. But I just want to pick up on one thing this ad mentions. It talks about new standards. These early Spectravideo machines were the precursor to a new standard, and this was MSX. MSX was a hardware standard for home computers developed by Microsoft and some Japanese companies, and the idea was that if home computers had similar hardware specs and configurations, software writers could easily write for many machines by writing to the standard. It never caught on, but the fact the SV-318 and 328 computers were early models for the standard made these units of interest to me as a collector, that is, someone interested in the history of microcomputing as reflected in the machines themselves. So here's my SV-318. Now, another thing that made me want this model is the design. I find it attractive, and it's very retro looking. I like the colour scheme and the shape, and I particularly like the little red joystick. It's not that practical, as the ergonomic joysticks sold by Spectravideos were way better than this built-in one, but it looks kind of nifty and kind of cute, and makes the computer stand out from the crowd. The keyboard is chiclet, but it's usable enough. Machine's quite light. That and the colours, the keyboard, strong plastic case, the joystick, make it all rather toy-like, and I don't mean that in a negative way. It simply has the feel of a robust, fun home computer. So let's go for a tour. On the left side we have a couple of joystick ports, a switch and a power socket. Around the back there's not much. Peripherals needed an expansion box. In the middle is a card edge to interface with this expansion box, And with that box you could plug in disk drives, printers, modems and the like. In fact, the SV machines were sold with a whole suite of peripherals. Unfortunately, I don't have any of them. So continuing on, further round to the right we have a card edge for a cassette recorder, and finally a socket for the video output. Here's what it looks like inside. We just have a single board. RAM chips are up there in the top corner. One dubious thing is the keyboard cable, which is soldered to the motherboard. I really don't like this design. My Dick Smith System 80 uses a similar arrangement to connect its dual circuit boards, and over time these joints can get brittle and snap off when the cable is flexed. So I did do a repair on this machine, and when I did that repair I was extremely careful not to flex this cable too much. The SV-318 came with its own special data cassette recorder and player, quite similar to the Commodore's. I don't like the design as much as the Commodore's though. It's a very boxy shape and somewhat ugly. It does load tapes at 1800 baud though, which is pretty fast. The machine also comes with a separate power unit like most of these home computers. So let's have a quick flyover of the machine before we load any software. Give you a better look at it. So here's the joystick. You can see it's plugged into a circular pad there, which is actually a cursor pad. So you can use this to position the cursor when you're doing some basic programming. It helps with editing, so that's handy. Just going up towards the top, you can see some buttons that are specifically for editing. There's an insert, paste, select, cut button. So they're dedicated ones. They're quite useful. There's the slot where you would plug in any of your cartridges. I don't have any cartridges for this machine, unfortunately. Oh, and here's the RF modulator. It's external, and it comes with a Spectravideo, so that sits between the computer and the television, so it plugs into the television aerial. Here's the fairly chunky data cassette unit with a cassette of games loaded and ready to go. So, pretty nice looking unit, and I've got one of the Spectravideo joysticks plugged in. They did make very good joysticks, Spectravideo, and this is they were sold commonly here in New Zealand, and this one certainly works well. So let's put the machine through its paces. So switching on, we get a splash screen, and then we find ourselves in the basic editor. And to load a program with a tape, we just use the command cload. Tells us to push play, very much like the Commodore, and it'll look through the tape for a program. Now this particular one that we're going to load needs to be loaded in 2 steps. The first thing it loads is a short loader program, and once that loads in and you run it, it loads the main program, which is in machine code. And as it loads in, we get a graphical indication of the load. So in that way, it's very much like the Spectrum, where you get flashing blocks as things are loading in. I think it's quite a handy feature on these home computers because it does show that there's something coming into the machine and that memory's being loaded up and that there's no errors. Certainly earlier machines, earlier microcomputers, there was no indication at all, or a very minimalist indication that something was actually working when you were loading the tape in. So loads in quite quickly. It goes at 1800 baud, as I said, and that's a lot quicker than, say, an earlier machine like the TRS-80 Model 1, whose tape speed was 500 baud, so it's considerably faster than that, and I found it to be quite reliable. Now, this machine's a 16K machine, so there's not a lot of memory anyway, so the particular programs I've got aren't that big, and in my collection I've got a combination of basic programs and some of them like this one in machine code. I have found the better programs are the ones that were bought out by Spectravideo itself. They tend to be machine code, they're quite fast, and generally quality seems reasonably high. So we've loaded in most of the game now, and we're just about to start. Now this game we're going to look at is a variation on Space Invaders. It's Space Invaders is getting a little old hat by 1983, but it does show off the sprites and the graphics quite well. It's also very, very fast, so although I've selected the very lowest level here, you'll see once we start to play this game that it's actually quite challenging. So there are our creatures, so out comes the gun, and away we go. Quite quick, good rapid movement, fairly smooth. Sound effects are nothing to write home about, and that's one thing with these this particular computer. It's got a good sound chip, a Yamaha sound chip, but you can't really compare it to the SID chip of the Commodore 64. It really isn't quite that quality, but it's certainly no worse than a lot of home computers that were on the market at that particular time. You can still have quite an enjoyable game, and it doesn't detract from the experience. So, getting down to a few aliens now, still a few to deal with. I might even get past this first screen if I'm lucky. This is sort of almost a combination between Space Invaders and Galaxians, because these aliens do come down and come at you rather than just staying up there in a line. So, okay, great. On to the second screen. So, not expecting to last very long. It's the first time I've played this game since I set the Spectravideo up with its software, so I'm certainly not very experienced at it. But like a lot of these sort of simple games, it's just a matter of blasting away until you use up all your lives, which I just have. Yeah, so out of the games I've got, I felt that one was a good one to demonstrate some of the capabilities of the Spectravideo 318. Now I want to look at another game. This is a basic game, and the reason I'm showing you this is not really to show you the game as such, but to show you the basic. Now the Spectravideo 318 has Microsoft Extended Basic, which is a very, very good version of Basic. It's really the version of Basic that I'd wish the Commodore had for its machines. So here you can see this very simple program where you're trying to dodge these ghosts by jumping over them. So it's all written in BASIC, this one. It's not machine code. It's a very simple program. Right, the ghost has got me. So we'll crash out of that, but I'll show you the code, and you'll see when you look at the code that the BASIC has a lot of the necessary commands to control the graphics and the sound and to develop a game. So you've got commands like sprite on, for example. You've got an on sprite go to command or go sub command. Things like there's a sprite string there. So there's lots of these commands to let you develop these games, not with machine code, but in BASIC. So locate command there. Just scroll through a few more pages, and I'll point a few other of these commands out. So you've got the likes of Cassette. There's a whole library suite of these commands. A little similar to the sort of BASIC that you got with the IBM PC. A good extended version of it. Now this was one of the things about the MSX standard, is that it had this Microsoft Extended Basic. Great basic for learning, so if you're using the machine at home and children were using it, they could really be quite creative. Very often programming these things with pokes and using machine code was difficult for a lot of, particularly kids. But with something like the Spectravideo, having these commands in BASIC to let you control those attributes of the colours and the graphics and the sound, it meant that even very young people could sit down and do something that would be quite a creative project for them. Another nice thing about the BASIC is that it did have full screen editing facilities, so I'll just demonstrate that. So we'll type in a very short line of code here. the old Hello World, which everyone uses as their very first program that they ever write in a new language. Now, if we just want to edit this, I'll use that cursor pad that the joystick sits in, and you can move the cursor around, and using those buttons that were above that, the insert delete buttons, you can just push insert and add a new word. So we'll say hello VC for Vintage Computer World. Push return, and that line's then entered in, so we've done the change. In the overstrike mode, we can simply type over the existing text if we want to put, say, a new basic command there in place of it. Again, push return, and it's entered into the system. And run it, and there we have our program. Being someone who learnt BASIC on my Dick Smith System 80, which was a fairly good version of Microsoft BASIC, I do like home computers that have a good extended BASIC, and so people can program them easily. So I'll have a look now at some manuals, and we'll start off with the user guide, and it's not in very good condition physically, as you can see. It's a little bit ratty. The front cover has come detached, and so is the first page. But it's a very good manual. It's quite thick, as you can see, and fairly comprehensive. So you've got the likes of a reference card at the back, shows all the basic keywords. You've got the glossary of terms, tells you what things mean. There's a conceptual map here as to how the bits of the computer actually work. Quite full appendices with a lot of the information you'd need to actually program the computer and use it. There's some, well, not really schematics, but it talks about the various ports and how they're wired up. There's a list of reserved words here for BASIC. And I'll just dwell on this for a little bit, because it gives you a good indication of just how comprehensive this BASIC actually is. You know, you've got commands like print using, define user, you've got sprite commands, you've got a lot of those extended keywords that are important for using the hardware. So as I say, I do like home computers that have a good version of BASIC. ASCII character codes. You've got chapters that deal with various aspects of basic programming, like you have in a lot of the other home computer manuals. Yeah, it's just well written. There are lots of examples. Certainly, sitting down and working through this manual, you could first of all get a good grip on BASIC and also how to use those extended keywords and drive your machine. Also covers the keyboard, how to edit BASIC, so those various edit buttons that you can use, how that works. So yes, a pretty good manual to use your machine with. Oh, this diagram just shows the family that you can add to the Spectravideo 318. If you want to spend some more money, you can plug in a lot of peripherals. So that's the user's manual. I also got a short, small manual on the data cassette. This is it. Tells you all you want to know about that, how to set it up and plug it in, and how to use it. Also, how to look after cassettes as well, how you might clean it and just maintain the unit. Some of the Spectravideo games I've got come with their own instruction manuals, so I just thought I'd show you a few of these. This is a basic tutorial one. Spectron, this is the Space Invaders game that we looked at earlier. Shows you how it works and might be some strategies for winning. Armored Assault, which is actually a very good game for this machine. It requires 2 people to play it though, so I didn't show it to you, but you can find YouTube videos on this particular game, quite good, on the Spectravideo. And finally, this Home Economist program. This is quite interesting in that it allows you to do things like keep recipes on your computer, which I found interesting because it was one of the things in early microcomputing when they started to sell them into homes. They said, people might like to use them for. I don't know how many people have. Here are just another couple of books that I've got for the machine, a basic reference manual, and I've also got this book too by Ian Sinclair on Spectravideo computing, so that covers the machines as well. And finally, just three other bits of hardware. I've got paddles for the machine, and I've also got this TV antenna box. Apparently this actually came with the machine, so it was in the box when you bought it. It was assumed that you were going to use the family TV. And also in the box was a spare joystick key, always handy. Now just before we finish, I want to point out a little quirk of the machine. You see that label that's sitting up there proudly proclaiming 32K ROM and 32K RAM. It's a little misleading in that 32K RAM in the machine is made up of 16K video RAM, which is not accessible to the user, and 16K user RAM, which once you've loaded BASIC, it's actually just under 13K. So it's not really RAM as we would normally understand it. So it's a little bit like false advertising. Nevertheless, I'm really pleased to have this machine in my collection. It's really retro looking. The little red joystick gives it a bit of flair, and it's got a wonderful version of BASIC. So that's the Spectravideo 318.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that look at the Spectravideo 318. I have got another Spectravideo in my collection, the 728, and at some stage I'll get around to doing a video of that one, and that is a true MSX machine. So until then, keep well, and we'll see you in the next video.